This is the Marketing Agency Power Hour, and I'm your host, Cal Wilder. Each week, we'll power through discussions on business challenges, success stories, and game-changing strategies. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, provider of bookkeeping and accounting for marketing agencies. Let's get started. So I'm excited to talk to today's guest. He's a marketing innovator. He's an entrepreneur with a lot of deep experience working in marketing for a lot of different clients as a strategic planner and a team leader. He's a digital community developer and currently focused on increasing customer engagement and enabling one-to-one automated marketing strategies. He's done a lot of market research over his 25 plus years of experience, including a lot of international consulting. He's currently the CEO of OOMIJI. Jon Stamell, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Cal. It's great to be here. I appreciate being invited to be on.
So what's the single most effective strategy for success in your business these days?
I think it's helping our clients grow their customers' lifetime value, whether it's a trade customer or it's a consumer customer. So that's the single area that we focus on. And there are a number of ways that we do that by enabling them to understand what their customers are saying, their customers' perceptions, emotions, motivations, a lot of getting to the why behind what customers do or what they think, which when I ran an agency for 22 years was a thing that helped us understand why.
Great. And so when you talk about lifetime value, how do you define that?
Well, there are a lot of formulas for lifetime value that have to do with how much people are buying, the frequency with which they're buying. What we do is we add net promoter scores to that. And I don't know how, a lot of agencies don't use net promoter scores, and we think it's a really good measure of customer satisfaction. Net promoter scores were first created by Bain Consulting around 30 years ago. Basically, two questions. One is a numerical rating, and the second is, well, what's the reason behind your rating? Usually used as an index by companies. So the first quarter, we got these ratings and these reasons, second, third, fourth, and so on. But we can retain language. We can categorize language. And so we enable brands to search the language that every individual customer uses to understand what makes them tick. And through net promoter scores, we can identify who their promoters are, who their potential brand ambassadors are, create a benchmark of that, and then show how that's improving customer lifetime value. And that's something that's quite different from when I ran an agency.
Yeah, so we'll get to when you ran an agency, but I just want to clarify with NPS. It's like I'm aware of it in the concept of you ask your customers, how likely are you to recommend the vendor to another customer, right? And they score you on like a 1 to 10, and if they give you like an 8, 9, or 10, you're a promoter. If you're like 5, 6, maybe 7, you're considered neutral, and like 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, you're considered a detractor, right? So that's like a basic question that you score. But I think you're taking it a step further, and you're looking to use AI technology to parse and analyze the commentary that goes along with that score. Is that right?
Yeah, that's pretty much correct. The problem with net promoter scores as they've been used is that they do collect scores and they collect reasons. And then the reasons usually are subject to internal bias or interpretation by the companies themselves. And so there's always, we know what they're thinking when you really don't know what they're thinking, which is one of the things that research should tell you is what our customers thinking. And so we're able to search a database of could be hundreds of thousands of customers for specific scores, specific reasons, And we can combine that with other questions that get asked of customers or events they attend or ads they respond to. What our platform does is it builds a persona around every individual customer, and then you can then segment customers in multiple ways. But it ultimately um, makes its point through customer satisfaction and what are the perceptions, motivations, and emotions behind. Because that's if you understand those, that's how you can move people along to a higher level of engagement.
So your current company, you have a product offering that you're marketing to other agencies geared around NPS and analyzing NPS. Is that right?
It's geared around customer insights, NPS being a part of that, but also the ability to ask questions and um, get customer insights, um, even aggregate the insights if you want to a one-click um, report with actionable marketing recommendations, or segment your customers based on their interests, their needs, their perceptions. Could be past behavior, but we think it's more important to understand where your customers now and what do they want from you in the future and why do they want it.
Okay. So are you looking to partner with other agencies to fulfill this portion of their client work, or how are you bringing this to market?
Okay. Well, we do have agency clients right now. It's a great thing for agencies because it offers them a way to add additional revenue to what their offer is. And the reason for that is that there's a lot of content that can be driven through the platform. There's a lot of analyses that can be done for clients and marketing recommendations. And we don't need or want the income from that part of it necessarily. That will give to the agencies. We have a very low fee for using the platform. And so we have agencies that they do the interface and interaction with their clients, and they use the platform to provide the insights and tell the agencies, here's some things you never knew before. Tell the clients, excuse me.
All right. And let's talk about the agency you owned. All right, you grew it to a pretty good size and probably had some sort of an exit. What was that journey like?
The agency started with me, and around 10, 11 years later, we had just under 90 employees and $60 million thereabouts in capitalized billings. Um, I had two partners. The agency was located in Maine, so we had some of the usual main accounts, LL Bean, probably the best known, Sebago Shoe, Chinet, Paper Plates. Those were all clients. We did a lot of international business and a lot of food and beverage business. Those areas were ones that I handled. And so we won the national profile campaign for the country of Chile after Pinochet left government. We won the 1994 Winter Olympics account in Norway. Um, we did a lot of work for the Department of Trade and Industry in the UK, a lot of work in South Africa, and then worked for some major wineries in California, Gallo, Fetzer, Glen Ellen. So it was the principle there was, because you were located in Maine, and I think this is very true today of agencies everywhere. It doesn't mean that you're restricted to doing business in Maine. There are no boundaries, and that's something about this about.
Yeah, I'm very curious because about how you had a good sized business in Maine, but it wasn't Fortune 500. But you were working with big name clients here, and the country of Chile sparks my interest because I studied abroad there in the fall of 1997 when I was a senior in college, and very interested in the whole political history there and the development of the country. It's such a great country, so diverse between deserts and almost down to Antarctica and everything in between. So how up in Maine, how did you get connected with Chile to do work for them?
So it started with seafood. It started with salmon. I got a call in the spring one year from, I had a lot of seafood clients at the time, and I was just on my own. And I got a call from the trade commissioner of Chile. He said, we're starting a new salmon farming association, and you were recommended as one person that might be able to help. Would you like to compete for their account? I said, sure, thinking that would be the end of it. Then about 3 months later, I got a call again saying, okay, we're down to 4 agencies. And great, they needed a little bit more information. And then they called in October of that year and said, if you want it, you got the account. We have meetings in Santiago on Monday. And I said, well, which Monday is that? Well, this Monday, of course. And, now at the time we were seeing lots of reports of soldiers on the streets and that kind of thing. The 1989 plebiscite had not taken place yet. This was it was late 1988. And I went down there. There were troops on the streets. I had some interesting experiences there with the military a little bit. But we got started with them. And then when Pinochet was voted out of government a year later, a group of around 30 companies there recognized that they really needed to change their image globally. And they decided to go to agencies that already had some familiarity with Chile. So it ended up being us and about 12 agencies in New York. And again, the same winnowing down process that every agency goes through when they're trying to pitch out. And we ended up winning that. Similar thing happened in Norway for the Olympics as well.
Yeah, how did you get connected to the Olympics?
Well, when the Chilean salmon industry, we had been their agency for a couple of years, and they said, okay, we think we've conquered the U.S., which they hadn't. But they said, we're going to move our budget more to Japan. And so the Norwegians called me and they said, you've really been thorn in our side for the last couple of years. Can we talk to you? And so we had a discussion. They hired us. And so we became the agency for Norwegian salmon. That industry later went bankrupt. We ended up getting the entire Norwegian seafood account. But then I ended up sitting at dinner next to the foreign minister in Oslo. And he said, we have this event coming up. Maybe you've heard of it. It's called the Olympics. What would you do with it? And I started talking about not the Olympics as a tactic, but not the Olympics as a strategy, excuse me, but as a tactic to achieve a higher level strategy. And so we connected there. But again, they had a competition, which was us. It ended up being us against 4 New York agencies. And again, we ended up winning. And I think one of the things about having an agency in a small town, sometimes you can come up with more creative solutions there. Maybe that you don't have the rush and the hustle and bustle. Of course, I'm in New York now, but I think that being in Portland helped us. And it turned out that our clients loved coming to me.
Very interesting. So if you had to give some advice to listeners who run smaller agencies that want to win some big accounts, is there any advice you would give them how to win the big accounts when you're a smaller agency?
Yeah, so I think 2 things. One is I had this theory, what I call niche widening, which is if we had an account, let's say in wine or beer, well, that meant to me we knew something about alcoholic beverages or beverages in general. So that gave us a reason to go and pitch larger alcoholic beverage accounts. If we had in our case, a seafood account in a foreign country, that meant we could do international business anywhere because we're showing that we can do it in Chile. So it gave us, I would always take a niche and say, how can we make this bigger? So I think that's one way. The second way is that most agencies, and we did this ourselves, what you do is you end up pitching your creative experience, your creative skills. And I really think that this idea of pitching, uh, helping a client achieve higher customer long-term value is something that most clients haven't heard before. And I think if agencies uh, can do more of that, they're going to get more attention. And sometimes you've got to bring in an expert. That's why we're there. Um, and I think one of the hardest decisions an agency has to make, or an AE CEO has to make, is what don't we do with excellence internally, and where we have to go out and find someone else, because that means that um, you're going to give up some income that's coming in to bring in what you feel is a better solution. It's not an easy decision to make, particularly when you have a lot of mouths to feed.
Yeah, but that is an important strategic decision I've learned over the years, sometimes the hard way. You can't be good at everything. You got to strategically decide. And this comes back to, I think, Frances Fry and her book. Can't remember the name of her book, but Harvard Business School professor who basically said you have to consciously choose what to be good at and what you're okay being bad at, and make sure that what you're good at resonates with a large segment of the market so you have an actual business.
Yeah, I think I'm sure every agency you've spoken to, everyone that listens to your podcast has a particular area where they think this is what we really excel at. And then the question is, and like you said, this is a strategic question. What are those areas where you're not the best in class? And can you sub those out to experts? Can you make money even when you sub them out? And that's what we've tried to do, is help agencies make money as well.
And so if you look back at your career at the traditional agency, like what were the keys to success in allowing you to grow it to 90 or whatever employees and $60 million of revenue? How'd you make that happen? And it sounds like you made it happen relatively quickly.
We did make it happen quickly. I think in a way too quickly. That was one of the hardest things, is really managing, when you go up that hockey stick, is managing. And I think hiring was a huge challenge. And then we put a lot of attention into mentoring as well. So actually, on the day that you were hired, you received a Mac laptop, a copy of The Prophet by Khalil Gibran, and a copy of another Indian philosophy book. What we wanted people to recognize is they were someplace different. First of all, you're in Portland, Maine, so that's different by itself. But we wanted to say this is a place where we're going to try not to have politics. We're going to try to run as flat an organization as possible, not always easy. And we're going to be open to creative ideas wherever they come from. All hard things to put into practice, but we had various different things that we would do to try and continually instill that.
So talk to me about the trying to run a flat organization. Um, sometimes it sounds good, but can be challenging. And other times I see clients that have, the ratio of manager to worker who actually does things for clients is too high, right? So there's like one extreme, you got too much overhead, too many people that don't actually do a lot. And then on the other hand, you've got a bunch of people who do stuff with no organization, right? So how did you balance that?
So, anyone that's gone to business school probably came across Peter Drucker and his writings. And one of the things that he would say was called managing by walking around. And so one of the things that I and my partners did is we would spend a lot of time just walking around through the agency and checking in with people, finding out what's going on with them personally, what's going on with them business, what do they like, what don't they like, asking a lot of tough questions of people so that you get people to understand that the senior management cares. Now, we had a hierarchy, but we also instilled in the hierarchy, you've got to go around and talk to people every day. And then we want to hear what they're saying, what they're feeling, those kinds of things. We also injected a lot of humor into the workplace as well. And we had a ski team. We would take people. Some of the things you could do in Portland, Maine, is that you can leave work early with a group once a week and go and participate in some ski races about an hour away, or you can go sailing in good weather in the afternoon with a group, and so you can have fun together. So a lot of it is really working hard to develop uh, an atmosphere of trust, and that shows itself when you have a very low turnover rate, particularly with your best people. Well, I think one of the big problems for agencies now is that your top performers often leave because they have an idea for a business they want to start themselves, or somebody's poaching them. Of course, that always happens. But um, oftentimes you get that middle group which stays, um, and it gives you a certain level of performance, but doesn't help you to be a high achiever.
And so, I'm sure you've had some challenges over your career. What are some of the larger challenges the last couple, like either with the traditional agency or your current business that you've had to overcome or are trying to figure out now how to overcome?
I think in a way the traditional agency is easier because there you're selling a lot off of the creative work that you do. And you're selling a lot off of awards, but that's a little bit ridiculous because the awards are given out by other advertising people. But you use that as a sales tool. Um, I think when you have a client that looks at creative and says that's incredible, and then you can talk about, yeah, well, that company grew like crazy, not knowing really whether you were responsible for the growth or not, but it sure sounds good. So now, it's that old thing with the internet. No one knows you're a dog behind the computer, and which is an old New Yorker cartoon. If you've seen that, um, there's hundreds and there are thousands and thousands of competitors that are out there, and so it's difficult to separate yourself if you're in a crowded area. It's difficult to get noise, and I think our biggest challenge is inertia, meaning that someone who's interested in our platform, or we get to look at a demo, is using another platform, which could be far inferior. It doesn't do a lot that ours does, but it keeps working. They keep sending out those emails. And so, why should I change, really? You're telling me I'm going to get a better result, but the emails keep going out, which, by the way, and I will ask you, you know how many emails get sent around the world every day?
Not really, but I'm sure it's into the billions.
376 billion a day. And, and more than 90% of those go into spam, or they just sit in email boxes. And the reason for that is they tend to be transactional. If you look at the emails you get every day, they're all about transactions. We'll give you a deal, a percentage off on this product, or we have a new product to sell you, or a new event. They're not ones that are out there trying to create relationships. They're not ones that are asking for your opinion. There's an old adage, really, it comes in venture capital, that if you ask for advice, you'll get money. If you ask for money, you'll get advice. And um, the a good email should ask questions to further the relationship. I pick up my iPhone every morning, and I usually have around 90 emails that have come in right away. And I click the little edit button, and I go delete, 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 delete. Oh, that one looks interesting from a trusted source. Delete, delete. That's somebody I know. And everything else gets thrown out. And we've asked a lot of people how do you look at your emails? How do you delete them? And we found that that behavior is really quite common. So you tend to read emails where you have a relationship where somebody has invested in understanding your opinion, your likes, your dislikes, your perceptions, that kind of thing, which is a key part of our platform.
Yeah, so let's tell me more about your current platform and what kind of agencies or companies would use it and how exactly they would go about using it.
So the platform has 5 areas. All are built around the idea we want to create a persona around every individual customer. So it has a CRM on it, which is our version of CRM. It's styled for consumers largely, but we do have trade people that are putting it using it for trade customers. It has a section where you can build landing pages right on the platform, and you can measure the productivity of any event, ad, anything that you can attach a digital link or URL to a landing page. In our landing pages, you can ask a few questions. It has an insight section, which is where you can build SurveyMonkey type surveys of any length, although we usually advise make them short because people drop out of surveys at 8 to 12 questions. It has a full email platform on it, and it has the Net Promoter Score or measurement section on it. So if they're all integrated. So that means you can combine different sections of the platform. You can segment people based on any factor. You can segment people and overlay uh, where they are, what they're interested in, what their perceptions are, what their emotions are, what they're looking for, what their interests are, and what their past purchases are. And that gives you a much more microscopic view of the individual customer. Now, in reality, what happens when you create a segment, if you've got, let's say, 100,000 people or 50,000 people, whatever it is, in a database, the reality is when you create a segment, you're going to find probably the small segments are going to be hundreds of people. But you could get down to the individual if you want. And we recently had a client that using Net Promoter Scores found um, 80 people that fit into a category of, they said they love their product and they gave them a high score. And then they sent them an email asking if they'd like to become a brand ambassador. And more than 50 people responded in a week saying, I'd love to be a brand ambassador. So those were promoters who have a high lifetime value, which is gets maximized even further. And we're able to create a benchmark based on those people as well. The other thing that you can do on the platform, a lot of agencies are loath to take on market research. And that's something that they will typically farm out as well. But whether they do it in-house or they do it outside, it's got a significant expense to it, and it can take weeks and weeks to do it. So on our platform, one click gets you a complete analysis of any survey, and it gives you actionable marketing recommendations. It's pretty incredible, actually. It's very robust.
So I think you mentioned when we were speaking last week that one of your challenges, you operate an incredibly geographically diverse workforce now. Like, where are your people located?
So we're in Brooklyn, which is not so far away.
I got to ask you though, like, like Portland, Maine to Brooklyn, New York, very different places. What brought you from Maine to New York City?
I'm in the city. I'm not in Brooklyn. One of our staff people is in Brooklyn. Um, I think I was at that point where I was a big fish in a small pond, and I wanted to do something different and make a change. My kids were older, off in college, so I thought, well, this is a good time to do this. And I've always had clients in New York. I've always been in and out of New York a lot, and have always been intrigued by being here and the additional resources that are here, the networking that you can do, the clients that I'm able to uh, to, to win here, and resources to tap into have always been very appealing. That's one of the limitations that you have in a place like Portland. It also, if I look at some of my past trips to Chile or to Norway, it has taken me longer to get from New York to Portland than it did from Chile to New York in the winter. So that, it's that kind of thing that brought me here. Um, and I love it here. My wife is an artist. We go to a lot of museums. We go to a lot of events and discussion groups and things like that. Uh, but I've got somebody in Brooklyn, in Houston, in Mexico, in the Philippines, and currently looking for another person without regard for location. It works well, although mentoring is a lot more difficult.
Yeah, what I've seen in my experience is you get if you're willing to hire so geographically diverse, you get access to talent wherever they are in the country or maybe in the world. Um, but on the other side, if things aren't working out, it can be harder to diagnose what's not working because you're not just sitting next to them and looking over their shoulder and seeing what's going on. Like they're working from home someplace else in the world, and if there's a problem with performance, sometimes it's harder to diagnose.
Yeah, that has been a challenge. I think from what I've seen, sometimes you can see that deadlines are missed. Um, you can tell excuses behind things. So then you have to decide, well, what's my tolerance level for how long that's going to go on? The other thing, and I think a lot of people don't do this, is there's a limit to how personally we want to get involved with our employees. But I also think it's important to say, how are you doing? What's going on in your life? What do you do when you're not at work, when we're not talking? Tell me about yourself, your family, that kind of thing. Um, Again, it's showing an interest in the people that you're working with. Um, but there are challenges. I mean, all things being equal, I'd rather have people nearby that we can uh, all get together once a week or once every week, talk as well. But it is a very common way that business is done.
So I do need to ask you questions about accounting and bookkeeping and finance, and maybe it's a little more relevant to when you were running a more traditional agency, but maybe just as relevant now. But like, how do you go about staffing that function in your business? Because I think you're probably past the days of logging stuff in QuickBooks yourself, right?
Yes. So we have a bookkeeper. She does a fantastic job. She uses QuickBooks. Everything, these days downloads directly into QuickBooks. So that part's easy. We meet regularly to talk about finances, financial condition. Um, we have a great accountant that is connected with the bookkeeper as well. And also our bank gets involved on top of that. And so one of the things we've done is we've created relationships between all of them so that everybody's talking to each other and we're organized that way. Now we have my wife and I have a commercial real estate business as well. My wife has um, she's a surface designer, so she has her business. So we have a lot going on, and so there's a lot that's happening in the whole financial bookkeeping area, and so it's really important that we have all of these resources and that they're all coordinated. I did when I had my agency before have we had a controller and three people in that department, and the controller, um, I think we were a little too liberal with credit cards at the time, and the controller went on a shopping spree uh, on a trip, and we weren't looking at things quite as closely, and she was turned in by one of the people on her staff who fortunately had a little bit better sense of values. But of course, the money was lost. Um, we later started having, people still, we became a little bit more restrictive on credit cards and you had to check it in and check it out.
Yeah, that's tough. Unfortunately, A lot of business owners are trusting people and optimistic people by nature because you kind of have to be and to take on all the risks and opportunities.
You don't have to be. And advertising is not a command and control business. You've got to allow, whether it's advertising, PR, or whatever. You want creativity to flourish up from the bottom in an agency. And some people can get carried away and just have to watch for that and keep communication going. It's not easy. I always felt that um, politics and hidden agendas and third party communication start as low as having 7 employees.
Yeah, it's hard. The people is the hardest part of management for most of the time. Seeing the people.
I think mentoring, obviously recruiting is extremely important, having a good process for that. And uh, mentoring, I think, is one of the key things that senior management can do. You have to have um, really good mentoring skills and like to do it. Really enjoy teaching.
I find the older I get, the more I appreciate the mentoring aspect of the job, right? When you're young, you kind of think you know it all and don't have the experience of realizing that you don't know it all. And then you get older and you're like, yeah, I have some insights to offer. I still don't know it all. I probably know less now than I did 20 years ago, but uh, at least I can share what I do know now.
I think one of the most gratifying things is when you sit down with someone, you talk about improving their skills, and then you give them tips or you go through work. I used to do a lot of mentoring with writing and go through someone's writing and show them how something could be a lot better and how to think about it in the future, and then seeing what they do after that. It's tremendously gratifying seeing that. And that's one of the things that AI does not do. Is not good at mentoring. And so just having AI write something is not going to improve someone's skills. It doesn't teach people. To me, good writing has rhythm to it. And you're not going to learn that from AI.
Yeah, I mean, I look at my own experience in education, and I grew up at a time when it was like all about like learning as much information as you can, and that was considered a good education if you're very knowledgeable on a lot of things and you got your A's and all your different subjects, which is great, but didn't necessarily guide you how to think. And I think a lot of what I learned, because I have a degree in biology and a minor in chemistry, and I took a lot of math, and I use almost nothing of that in my day-to-day life anymore. But it taught me to think very rigorously and kind of showed me what was possible tackling very hard technical challenges, but applying a rigorous thinking framework to it. And so I feel like, the benefit was not actually what I learned, but the fact I needed to learn how to learn and how to process information and how to address challenges. And so I feel like that was really valuable. And so I think the risk with AI is these days, the information is so readily available, you don't need to learn it necessarily. And then the thought process, you can kind of get around just asking AI. So I'm a little nervous. We're going to lose the ability to think.
That's a really great point. And when we were hiring, when I had the agency, we rarely, if ever, would hire anyone that had a degree in advertising, a degree in public relations, because all they're learning are tactics. Then, what we wanted were people who had degrees in philosophy, English literature, um, those kinds of things, because we knew they were probably well read, they could think, and they could be creative. Um, well, I realized the other book that we gave new employees, which is one that I'd recommend to anyone, is called Lateral Thinking by De Bono, and which is a really good book for anyone in advertising or public relations to read.
Yeah, and I'm really struggling with this question a little bit, especially now because I've got kids who just started their freshman year in high school. I got twin boys, and I need to, really figure out exactly what they need to learn over the next 3.5 years to, advance maybe to college or some job or whatever. Like, what do they actually need to learn, and how do I position them to learn that? Because it's so different than it was 35 years ago when I went to high school and when you went to high school. Like it's not about learning data. It's like, can you manage the people? Can you manage technology? Can you sell something? Like the value of different parts of the educational spectrum, I think has dramatically changed. And so I'm trying to figure out where in that spectrum do my kids really need to learn and home in on, and how can I support them?
Yeah, and I think, even with AI, rather than ask AI to think for you and to write for you, um, the jobs in the future for AI, certainly in a lot of agencies, are going to be about how good are you at writing prompts? How good are you in getting the AI to analyze further, to go deeper into information? And when I use AI a lot, we have it on our platform. Um, a lot of the work that I've been doing, the prompt itself is 700 words or more because what I want is a lot of detail. So it's not just give me this; it's really defining really closely what it is and not necessarily accepting what it delivers you right away too, is then adjusting what the prompt is. And I think that the whole, the art of writing prompts is something that's going to be a job in the future that's probably going to grow, which requires knowing how to think. Because the great thing that AI does is it can comb through enormous amounts of information and give you a response. So now, how can you apply your thinking skills and your creativity to get it to go places where others aren't going to get it to go?
So you got Omiji off to a great start, and you're bringing, I mean, I haven't spoken with any other agency owner who has the same specific offering that you've developed at Omiji with the platform for analyzing client data, parsing it and scoring it, with an eye toward maximizing lifetime value. So, and as a finance guy, I'm always thinking about lifetime value compared to cost of customer acquisition and how do you optimize that so you got a profitable business that can be scaled. And I'm still struggling with that a little bit internally in my own business, but I love the language you're talking. But is this something that you want to continue to kind of build out in your own? Would you look to merge in or merge into or be acquired by another business that could take what you had and kind of bring it to the next level with distribution?
Yeah, actually, we are looking for a good merger situation or an acquisition situation where um, someone is interested in how we've put together the product, that they recognize it's something that you really can't find elsewhere. You can find bits and pieces elsewhere, but you really can't find the methodology that we're using elsewhere. Um, so that's something that is definitely appealing to us, as well as obviously continuing to grow what we have and to sell further. The other thing, which I think you had started to ask before and I didn't answer, is that if there's any one area where we tended to have a little bit more focus, it's in what I would call the aspirational luxury sector. So that would be wine and spirits, a lot of food and beverage, skincare and beauty, tourism, travel, um, home and office accessories. And even nonprofits, cultural organizations, because the funds that they're raising tend to come from people that are in that aspirational luxury market.
Okay.
So that's not to say that we can't help a company that's selling toilet bowls, but it wouldn't be our first uh, skill.
Yeah, understood. Uh, so if we think back to days of Little John, did you think you'd be running your own business one day?
I think I wanted to be a gardener or a garbage man, actually. Um, and, um, no, I didn't really. I always had a wide array of interests. One of the things which I didn't realize it at the time, but I grew up doing a lot of sailboat racing. And I really think that that's where I began to understand the difference between strategy and tactics. Because when you're racing a sailboat with the vagaries of the wind, the weather, the waves. You first have to look at, well, what's my strategy? Which way am I going to go? What's my direction here? And then there's a tremendous number of small course changes, sail changes, adjustments, things that you're going to do along the way. And those are all tactics. And it wasn't until later that I realized that that's what it is. Also, my father was a psychiatrist. And so I think that I got this interest in understanding why people do what they do or believe what they do, probably from conversations with him and things that he did. My mother was a teacher. So I think I got that interest in mentoring from her. Um, I, I've had a lot of food and beverage accounts, and I I uh, I like to eat and I like to drink really well, and so I think being able to develop a lot of that business around the world has also been something that I've enjoyed.
And you've got, multiple degrees. I assume your parents probably instilled some respect for education, but right, you've got multiple graduate degrees or whatever, right?
That's all that was important in my family, and not necessarily a positive, but it was all about grades and degrees and scholarship and that kind of thing. Um, so very important. And I have a brother that has too many degrees and has gone to too many schools, and um, so but yeah, I mean, that's the environment that I grew up in, and I like to think that I softened that for my kids. They were very high achievers.
So if you could go back in time to when you started your career after you got out of school, and give yourself some advice, what would you tell yourself?
Well, it's that old thing of do what you love. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had no idea. And somebody said, well, go work for a bank because there you see a lot of businesses and you'll get exposed to a lot of things. And I ended up being a commercial loan officer for 4 long years. And nothing against bankers, but particularly then, it was not a particularly exciting area. Um, I love to write, and if I had to do it all over again, that would probably be the direction that it would have gone. Um, is writing, and I do have like a lot of people that have been in advertising. That's almost become a joke. I have a a, a, a novel off on the side that I've been working on for a long time, and so yeah, that would be something that I probably would have thrown myself into.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And the advice I get somebody like you that says, do what you love. And then I hear from other people, figure out how you can make money to support yourself and then separate your work from your life. Like separate what you love doing from what you need to do to make money. And I'd like to think we could all just find something we love doing and make enough money to support our entire lifestyle that way.
One of the things about being in creative fields is that I have always found that you you go to museums, you travel, you go out, you take a walk in the neighborhood even. Um, there are always ideas. You're seeing them all around you. Um, I also should tell you that I have an avocation as a cartoonist. And if you go to gigundoindustries.com, you'll see a couple hundred cartoons there. When I first moved to New York, I was going into the New Yorker every Tuesday with cartoons, and a lot of those came from my life in New York, things that I see, things that I read, people that I talk to, that kind of thing. And so you'll find them there, and a lot of people have really enjoyed looking at that website as well.
You make it hard to get into the website. I just went there. I gotta click through. Are you sure you really want to come here?
Huh. Well, naturally, we set up every page of the website as kind of a joke on its own,
I can tell it's very sarcastic. I love it. That's nice.
and then you'll get to the cartoons. Now, a lot of that is very closely related to coming up with strategy too, because what a cartoon does is it takes situations which come from business or everyday life, and it puts them um, in with cavemen or in a psychiatrist's office or some unusual situation and distills it down to a single sentence which creates a message. And there's a lot of strategy. It's a different muscle that you're using creatively, but there's a lot of strategy in there as well.
And so if agency owners are listening and want to get in touch with you to discuss this offering, what's the best way for them to do that?
Send me an email, john@oomiji.com. OOMIJI.
OOMIJI.
That's right. And our website is the same, OOMIJI, but AI.
And there must be a story behind that name. What does OOMIJI mean?
It's derivative of a Japanese word which means to get a view. And so that kind of symbolizes what the platform is about because it gives you a view of your customers collectively and your customers individually as well. When I owned an agency, we often had clients would ask us to come up with names for new products and services. And at that time, we kept around half dozen or dozen different baby name books. And so you would have thumb through those and you look for names and combinations. Well, the way you do it today is you come up with as many words or phrases as you can think of that might be similar to what you're offering, and then translate those through Google Translate into different languages and then look for some interesting names there.
Is that because all the common URLs have been taken?
Pretty much so, yes. Yes, that's right.
So listeners, I hope you've really enjoyed this discussion with me and John. I would encourage you, if you're running an agency and you're looking to add value to clients by helping them understand, what their end customer is actually thinking that would directly relate to their ability to retain them as a customer, continuing to win their business, increasing lifetime value, that you check out John's company, OOMIJI, OOMIGI.ai. Well, look, I really appreciate all your time and insight and sharing your experience from your very successful business career that remains evolving, right? And ongoing and growing.
That's right. That's right.
For those listening, if you learned something today or laughed or just enjoyed the conversation about trials or tribulations or successes of insights or from another agency owner, please tell your peers about this podcast. We're all in this together. So let's help out fellow agency owners. Thanks again, John.
Thank you. It's great to be with you.
This has been another exciting episode of the Marketing Agency Power Hour. We'll see you all next time. Another episode in the books. Thank you so much for tuning in. For show notes and more, please visit marketingagencypowerhour.com. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, providing marketing agencies with bookkeeping, accounting, and finance support. With SmartBooks, you gain the clarity and confidence to make your agency a success. Until next time.